Hi, I'm Chef Ian Bromstead, and welcome to Regal Fare, where I'll show you how to create simple and elegant meals, just like we do at some of the finest restaurants in this country. Today we're going to prepare some deep-fried squash blossoms with taleggio cheese, truffles, and honey, and then we'll have some roasted lamb loins with butter beans, peppers, and eggplant. Then to finish, we'll have a little almond streusel with apple compote and some creme fraiche. So right away we can get started on our squash blossoms. So I've already taken the center, the pistil out of these squash blossoms, and I'm just going to put a little piece of taleggio cheese inside. I'm just going to take the tweezers here and just gently get this piece of cheese right in the center of the flour. Very delicate process. Just want to open it up a little bit. Open up the flour. And like I said, I've already taken the time and taken these tweezers to pull the pistil out. It's just a little bitter, a little toothsome. So we're just going to get this piece of cheese right down on the inside. So now that we have one of these stuffed, I'll do one more. And again, we're just going to grab the cheese and open up the flour. And just lay this cheese right in the center. Right down towards the bottom. So now that we have our squash blossom stuffed, I'm going to go ahead and make a quick pastella batter. This is a traditional Italian batter. So I'm just going to take about a cup of soda water or sparkling water, and I'm just going to add some all-purpose flour. Maybe about a quarter of a cup. I like to add the soda water first. It really helps mix the flour in without over mixing it. Just a little bit more, I think. Just want a nice runny batter. Not too thick, because we don't want a big thick coating of the batter on the outside of the blossom. It's just about right. Get these, just a little bit more flour. Just want to get like nice little ribbons come off. This is just right. So I've preheated some extra virgin olive oil to 350 degrees, and I'm just going to batter and fry these little flowers. So I'm just going to drop them in, gently coat them in the batter. And then I'm just going to one by one just drop these right into the hot oil. You'll see that they start to float, so we'll want to just give them a quick turn, just so that they get cooked evenly. Gentle. And we're frying on both sides. Just another couple moments here. Almost ready, just until we start to get golden brown. We don't want to overcook these, because what will end up happening is the cheese on the inside will start to melt and leak out, so we don't want to fry these too much. So I can feel that the skin of the squash blossom is already starting to get just a little crisp. So just another couple moments here. Turn it again. And this one is almost ready, just the batter is still just a little soft. This first one is just about ready, so we can pull this out. Just lay it on a paper towel to absorb a little of the excess oil. And as soon as this comes out of the oil, I want to make sure that I season it right away. And what that does is all the hot oil that's still on the surface of the squash blossom will actually dissolve the salt. So it'll actually become very nicely incorporated. So we can take this one out, it's ready. And again, season right away. So we have our deep fried squash blossom. Now to plate this, I'm just going to take a little bit of honey. I'm going to drizzle it on the plate so they don't slide around. A couple little dots, just to keep the blossoms from sliding around. One here. One here. And a little more honey over top. I really like the sweetness of the honey. It goes really well with the cheese, and it really goes nicely with the fried squash blossom. So just a little bit of honey. So the honey. And what I really like on this is some fresh black truffles. If you don't have fresh, jarred is fine also. There's quite a lot of truffle options available these days. So these are just some jarred black truffles. So just maybe 5 nice pieces of truffle. We just lay these on nicely. This really works well with the flavor of the cheese and the fried squash blossom. Yeah, one more piece. And just to finish this, we just have a little bit of purslane leaves. This is a really delicious, astringent green. I believe it's in the succulent family. These actually come from Paffenroth Gardens. I got these at the Union Square Green Market today. And I think that these work also really well with the flavor of the squash. The squash is very rich because it's fried, and the cheese is very rich because it's a creamy Italian cow's milk cheese. And I think that the astringency of these purslane greens really works well with this dish. So just a couple more pieces of purslane, and we'll call this done. So here we have the deep fried squash blossoms with taleggio cheese, truffles, and honey. We're going to get this cleaned up, and we'll come right back and start on our dessert. Welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and get started on some of our dessert items. We're going to go ahead and make our almond streusel, and we're going to make our apple compote now. So I'm going to go ahead and start making our apple compote. So I'm just going to peel these apples. I'm just going to peel these 3 apples, and we can dice them and we can get them cooking. These are some delicious McIntosh apples. These are local apples, and I think this is going to work really well with our meal here. So now that we have our apples peeled, we can go ahead and dice them. So these apples are going to cook down quite considerably, so we don't need to focus too much energy on making the dice nice and perfect, because they're going to cook down and they're going to be cooked into a compote, and you're not going to really be able to tell how perfect you make the dice is. So it's totally fine. I'll leave them nice and coarse. I just like to take the 4 sides off and then start breaking them down. We can just start adding them to our pan here. And these will cook, and the moisture will start to come out of the apples, and they'll start to stew into a nice beautiful compote. Almost all of our apples are diced here. Now that we have our apples cooking, we can go ahead and start adding some spices. I'm going to add a couple cinnamon sticks. I'm going to add, well, let's say 5 pieces of clove. And when we get to the end here, we can go ahead and pull the spices out. Just let them give their flavor, and then they'll be able to come right out. And we'll have a nice little apple compote that we can use in our dessert. So now that these are just about done, we can let these guys keep cooking. Now we can start on our streusel. So to start on our streusel, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to take these 2 flours that I have here. One is almond flour and one is all-purpose flour. And I'm going to just mix them together in this bowl. About a cup of almond flour and about a cup of regular all-purpose flour. Now I'm just going to start mixing these together. So now that the 2 flours are incorporated, I'm going to add a little bit of salt. I like the Maldon salt for this. I really like the texture of it. It has a really nice crunch, and I really like it inside the streusel. So now that we have our flours incorporated, I'm going to go ahead and add some of our diced butter. So I have 2/3 of a cup of diced butter here. And we're just going to go ahead and get all this mixed in there. And we just want to start breaking up the butter. We just want to bring it down to what we call pea size, so that the butter is nicely incorporated, and then when we have the finished streusel, there'll be nice layers of the butter inside, and it'll make for a very tender and flaky streusel. So we just need to bring all these together. Almost ready here. So now that all of our flour and our butter is incorporated, we can go ahead and add just a touch of water just to bring all this together. Maybe a tablespoon of water. And this is all just about together now. So now that all of the ingredients are incorporated together, we have just a very loose ball of dough. And you can see that the almond color really comes through, and you can really get a little bit of that yellow color from the almonds, which I really like. Really adds a really beautiful richness to this streusel. I really love the nut flour in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break this up into big coarse pieces, and I'm just going to bake it. And that way when we go to plate our streusel, we can just crumble all this up and have a beautiful, nice little pie crust-like streusel. So just big chunks all over here. Just nice and even so that they cook evenly, so that they brown evenly. There's really no science to this part. Just want to have a nice even layer so that they just brown and cook relatively consistently. So now that we have this ready, stir the apples, make sure. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to continue cooking these apples for another 10 or 15 minutes, just until the apples are starting to break down. They'll eventually get a little bit of color. You can see that they're already starting to get a little bit of caramelization on the bottom of the apples. So we just want to cook these for another 10 or 15 minutes, just until the apples just start to break down and they become a homogeneous mass of apples. So I'm just going to pop these pieces of almond streusel into a preheated oven at about 350 degrees for around 10 or 12 minutes, just until they're golden brown. We're going to let these apples cook for another 10 or 15 minutes, just until the apples break down and start to get a little soft and come into a compote consistency. Then we'll plate it all at the end. So we're going to clean up and we're going to come right back and we'll start on our lamb. All right, we're back. Our almond streusel is just about done and our apples have completely cooked. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start on our lamb. To begin our lamb, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to heat this pan to relatively high heat. We want a nice high heat when we drop our lambs in. So I'm just going to season both sides of our lamb with salt and pepper. So I have some little medallions of lamb loin. These are delicious Colorado product. I'm just going to season both sides with salt and pepper. Nice crust of seasoning really makes for a delicious roasted lamb. So I'm going to take just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Drizzle it into this pan. You can see the oil is a nice shimmer. You can tell that the oil is hot. It's very important when we sear our meat that we have a nice hot pan. You just drop these guys right in. Turn this down just a bit now that we've dropped it into a nice hot pan. So while our lambs are cooking here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start making our vegetable side. So I'm going to drop just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil into this pan over here. So I'm going to take these little eggplants. These are fairy tale eggplants. These came to us from Lonnie Farms, and I'm just going to drop them face down and just start to saute. I like to place them all in individually. That way they all have their faces down, so that way they get a nice, even, consistent cooking on both sides. Check on our lamb. Slowly getting a nice sear. A little longer on both sides. So our eggplants are cooking, our lambs are cooking. We should be able to go ahead and flip our lamb now. Got a nice, beautiful sear. A little longer on this piece. So now that we've got a good sear, go ahead and turn the flame down just a little bit more. Getting a little smoky. Continue to watch our eggplants. Starting to get a beautiful golden brown on our eggplants. Should be able to flip this over. Nice beautiful sear on both sides. So we're roasting our lamb. I like to leave my lamb pretty rare. Nice medium rare, even medium's okay. So while we're cooking here, go ahead and check on our eggplants. Like that. Starting to get a nice beautiful golden brown on all the eggplants. Then go ahead and flip all these over. So now that we have a nice beautiful color on all of our eggplants, we're going to go ahead and add some of these large dice of red pepper. few pieces. So our lambs are continuing to cook. I'm gonna pull this guy out. It's a little small. I don't want to overcook him while this one finishes. Feel it, it's still pretty rare inside. Just gonna let this one continue to cook. This one's a little bigger. So I'm just gonna take this one out while this one finishes. We're continuing to saute our peppers. Peppers are starting to get just a blister of color on them. So now their eggplants are fully cooked and our peppers are blistered. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna season these. A little bit of cracked pepper. A little bit of salt. Continue to cook. So I have these Corona beans that I went and I soaked and I boiled for about an hour and a half, just until tender. I soaked them overnight. It really helps the beans absorb a lot of liquid. And that way when you go to cook them, they cook nice and easily. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the beans, a little bit of the liquid. So now that our lamb is nicely seared, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish basting both these pieces. So I'm just gonna take a couple cloves of garlic. I'm gonna drop them right in. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of butter. I'm gonna add just a couple sprigs of thyme. So this is gonna give the butter a really delicious garlic and thyme flavor that we're gonna finish cooking our lamb in. So now that we have the butter nicely seasoned, go ahead and just baste the lambs with it. Should be a nice medium rare on both of these. So this little guy is done. Take him out. And this one should be just about ready. So here we have our roasted lamb loins. I'm just gonna warm these beans. So we're just gonna take a little bit of this Italian flat leaf parsley and we're just gonna drop it into some very hot extra virgin olive oil just to deep fry it. And that's all we need here. Just a little bit of fried parsley. Pull this right out. Just be careful when you're doing this. The moisture of the parsley tends to explode all over, but that's how we do it. So just to this, we can add some of these black Cerignola olives. We can go ahead and get ready to plate. So I'm gonna shut this off, move some of these items. So we can go ahead and we can start to plate our beans. So here we have a delicious little ragu of beans and eggplant, peppers and olives. Really works very well with the lamb. Really some of my favorite flavors to eat with lamb. Very Mediterranean, really delicious here. More of these Corona beans, a couple more peppers. Nice mix of the vegetables. I really like to be able to see some of the purple of the fairy tale eggplant. So now that we have our ragu plated, we can just go ahead and slice the lamb. So I'm just going to split these right down the middle. Nice medium rare. We have our roasted lamb. So I'm just going to arrange these just like so. It's also important to give your lamb a little time to rest. Just a few minutes, 3-4 minutes, just to give it a little time so that the blood doesn't run. So just a little bit of Maldon salt on the eye. I really like the crunchiness of the salt on there. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this Calabrian chili and sprinkle that right on the meat as well. I really like that on there. It gives it a nice spicy kick to it. So I'm going to take some of this aged balsamic vinegar. And I'm just going to drizzle this around. Really get it all over the meat. Really, the acidity really brings a lot to this dish with the sweetness of the peppers. Really excellent with the lamb. I'm just going to take a little bit of this goat cheese, and I'm just going to crumble this right around. I really like the creaminess of the goat cheese. I think that works really well with the lamb. I think that it really brings a nice accoutrement to this dish. So now that we have our ragu and our roasted lamb and our goat cheese and our balsamic, I'm just going to arrange some of these pieces of fried parsley on there. Just all around with these little fried parsleys. The frying of the parsley really brings out the bright green of the parsley, and I really like that against the red of the peppers and the red of the meat. I think that really makes for an excellent little garnish for this dish. So here we have the roasted lamb loin with Corona beans, peppers, eggplant, balsamic, and goat cheese. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna clean this up. We'll come right back, finish our dessert, and present our dishes. Welcome back. So I've gone ahead and I've taken our apples out of the pot. I've removed the cloves and cinnamon. I've taken the streusel out of the oven and transferred it to this bowl here. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish up our dessert. So to finish the dessert, I'm just gonna take a little bit of this creme fraiche here. I'm just gonna add a little bit to the bowl with just a little bit of plain white sugar. Maybe a teaspoon and a half. I'm just gonna whip this. So I just want to whip it. This will whip just like heavy cream, so we'll be able to get nice firm peaks here. So we have a nice bit of creme fraiche here. To finish our apple compote with almond streusel, we're just going to take some of these pieces of the almond streusel and crumble them right in the bowl. Just make a nice little bed for the apple compote. Just all around. Nice, tasty, rich, delicious streusel. So now that we have that, I'm just going to layer a little bit of the apple compote right over the streusel. Just a nice even layer of the apple compote all over. Delicious, succulent, tender apples. And I'm going to take just a little scoop of the creme fraiche and set it right on top. Then, just finish, I'm going to take just a little bit more cinnamon, just grate it all over the top. Nice little grated cinnamon really brings that apple pie flavor to this dish. So here we have our warm apple compote over almond streusel with a little bit of whipped creme fraiche and a little grated cinnamon. We have our roasted lamb loin with our Corona beans, roasted eggplant, red peppers, fried parsley, goat cheese, and a little balsamic. And we have our deep fried squash blossoms that we stuffed with taleggio cheese, dipped in pastella batter and deep fried, with our truffles, our honey, and our purslane. I think this is an excellent late summer meal. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Regal Fare. I'm Chef Ian Bromstead, and we'll see you here next time.